Television, though well-meaning, cannot work miracles, but it can give gifts. We wanted to make Possuelo a gift, and so we put him in contact with his teacher, whom he hadn't seen for several years. Distances in Brazil are great, and we succeeded in shortening them in this reunion of friends and humanitarians. It's a delight to listen to these two old friends who have dedicated their lives to the Indians.
Mas e a filmagem? Ele está fazendo filmagem já?
Já está fazendo, desde a hora que nós estávamos ali falando, está filmando tudo. É encontro.
Isso aqui, que é, hein?
This eternal child is Orlando Vilas Boas.
Para vento, o vento não...
Hola, hola. Sí, sí. Uno, dos, uno, dos.
He is the only living brother of the legendary sertanistas, or wilderness experts, thanks to whom thousands of indigenous people have a decent life. The man you now see opening his home to us spent more than 40 years in the Upper Xingu, not content just to study the customs of the peoples who lived there, but defending their rights tooth and nail. Getting to know them was the most beautiful reward of his 80-year life.
Our life has been an escape from our mind. The forest has its beauty. To conquer it is beautiful. An Indian is different from what I used to think then. Brazilian society had the impression that the Indian was a creature that walked around the jungle killing people. We found a stable, tranquil society. A society where no one rules over another, where the old man is the master of history, the Indian is the master of the village, and the child is the master of the world. In 40-some years, I never saw a mother hit her child, or a father scold him, or parents say no to their children. The child is free. Our society is nothing like the indigenous in regard to our treatment of our fellow men, nothing like the Indians' treatment of each other. I never saw an Indian fight with another. I never saw an Indian argue with another. I never saw a husband fight with his wife. This just doesn't happen. Theirs are the norms of a very peaceful society. And ours is a totally miserable society. Totally miserable.
In 1961, along with his now deceased brothers, Leonardo and Claudio, Orlando created the Xingu National Park, an area of 30,000 square kilometers of nature that was going to be destroyed. His house is a museum full of truths, a mausoleum that exudes peace and experience. From this house, and with his authority, Orlando Vilas Boas blesses Sidney Possuelo's work. FUNAI, the state's Indian Protection Agency, must continue the fight so that the Indians are not gobbled up by our voracious society.
The FUNAI's purpose is to defend the Indians against the invasion of civilized society. That is the function of the Department of Isolated Indians that Sidney directs. It's very good work and well done, and is still very necessary because in northern Brazil there are still large groups of indigenous people isolated in the forest who have no contact with us. They know us by our deeds. They watch us from afar, but they have no contact with our world at all.
There is much to be done, many grievous wrongs to be redressed in the geography of crime. The Javari Valley needs a Don Quixote, and we're going there now as Sidney Possuelo's squires. In the western Amazon, in a virgin territory as large as all of Portugal, the forest has been at war for several centuries. We are in the eye of the Amazon hurricane, in the center of a battle in which both sides have suffered casualties. What was his name?
Guillermo Barbosa.
Did he ever speak badly of the Indians to you? Did he ever tell you anything bad about them?
No, never. Never, he never spoke badly about the Indians. He had no reason to. He never felt offended by them. If they crossed the river, they asked for things and we gave them beans, we gave them plants to eat. He never felt offended by them, and he never offended any of them, because he never saw them. He was out in the fields taking care of the harvest when it all happened. I even walked by him and he gave me his blessing. He told me he was going out to the fields. He was going out to the fields.
That's all right. That's all right.
Raimunda. Obrigado.
Thank you.
When I got home, I heard the news. I had seminated, and at 10 I found out what had happened. That he had died. That he was dead. They had killed him.
You didn't hear anything?
No, it was nighttime. I was very far from the place where it happened. On the riverbank. And my father was in the forest. He was at his plantation. They cut off his leg. They cut it off. They split it like this.
They cut it off?
They smashed his head completely. You couldn't make out anything. My brother has the photos, but only of his body, not of the head.
On August 29th, 1995, Raimunda's father was murdered by Indians. He wasn't the last victim, nor was he the first. At the FUNAI office in Atalaya del Norte, we are given more facts so as to understand this war between Indians and settlers a bit better. For years, the indigenous peoples have died defending their lands, and for the first time, this genocide has been documented before the Office of the Public Prosecutor. We should warn you, the images you are about to see are as tough as life is in these parts.
It was reported, and we had to find out if they were indeed Indians. We had to rescue them from that place. If I'm not mistaken, the massacre took place in September. They buried them on the beach, and at this time of year, the river was high. It was November, the end of November. That's why it was so difficult for the FUNAI team, which has been dedicated to indigenous causes for a long time, to rescue them. We took along federal police officers, a local doctor, a nurse, and several civil servants on this mission. And we managed to recover 2.5 bodies, since only half of one of the corpses could be gotten out.
E conseguimos resgatar 2,5 corpos, porque não teve condição de... Porque na hora de puxar, veio só metade, levando o pessoal e as caixas, justamente para colocar os corpos.
They were brought here to the house of the Indian, and the next morning the forensic surgeon, Dr. Rocha, performed the autopsies and confirmed that there were traces of lead in the ribs. The bodies were already in an advanced state of decomposition, but it was still possible to confirm that they'd been shot.